In this video, I'm going to do my best to break down the important things we need to be looking at from the previous video, the British legal system, evidently corrupt and not fit for purpose. Just so that you know, whilst this channel is Formula One focused, and a lot of people who have subscribed to the channel will have done so because they're interested in Formula One, fundamentally it revolves around justice, and fundamentally it also exposes the issues that impact our lives. This is one of them, and this is something I need people to understand. So I'm not just making this video as content to seek to make money. I'm seeking to try to get people to see what's actually happening and what the actual problems are. As you can see here, the visibility, the monetization of that video, it's ineligible. Like I say, I'm not making it for money. Okay, it's BBC copyrighted content which can be viewed, that you can utilize it to show people it, but you do not gain any money from that. And visibility partially blocked, which means that some territories BBC content is blocked. I don't know which which territories, there might be a list of that, but that's the situation. So visibility is partially blocked, my audience is likely to be limited, and there's no money. Obviously, I'm going to go through that video, so those same copyright checks are likely to exist on this video, causing those same restrictions to what you're about to hear now. So what I did, I took this recording of the BBC News, where it's a national broadcast giving people national news. All I didn't put any of my own commentary on, didn't speak about anything, it was just that video. Go and review it if you like. There are 96 comments to that video, which I will go through some of them afterwards. But importantly, let's go through this and let's go through some talking points. Now, the nature of social media, the nature of me presenting something on here, people will have their opinions. And what is an important dynamic to understand is the notion of trolling and the notion of people seeking to undermine everything that is being said by the content creator, by me. So I'm going to say things in this video and people will jump upon that to try and say, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, because that is what they do. I want you to understand, I know that some of the things that I say, I am not fully evidencing what I say. Some things cannot be fully evidenced, but I want you to understand the dynamics of what I'm saying in this video. Even that somebody will say, oh, well, that relates to your Abu Dhabi. They don't understand. Anyway, so you'll understand the first time I get to one, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we go. Let's play this through.
Today at 1, a man who's been in jail for nearly 40 years will find out if his...
We've got subtitles, and again, this is not relatively unimportant, but if somebody's reading this that's deaf, they're getting a different story, aren't they?
Conviction is to be overturned. Peter Sullivan was found guilty of the brutal murder of Diane Sindel in 1987, but new DNA evidence casts doubt on the case.
So, I'll come to the full implications of this. Major breaking story. There has been a victim of a crime, a murder victim, somebody who was raped and murdered, and our system convicted somebody of that crime, deemed them guilty of that crime, imprisoned them for the consequence of that crime for 38 years, losing them 38 years of their freedom, 38 years of their life. And now we're saying, oh, maybe they've not done it, is the news. Because this is supposedly unfolding as this is being played out. Are they going to change their minds on this?
Also on the programme.
Now this is another thing. Let's just go through some of this.
M&S says personal customer data was stolen during its recent cyber attack. They believe bank details are safe, but contact details and birth dates could have been harvested.
Lots of us have been exposed potentially to our data, which impacts things that can be stolen from us. Okay, that has been breached. Who's responsible? What are the consequences? What is actually being done about this? This is not a new thing. Okay, are the systems in place to deal with this robust enough?
Man's arrested over suspected arson attacks on 2 homes in London linked to the Prime Minister. Kim Kardashian.
Now, this is one of those things that the trolls were likely to seize upon. I'm going to make this comment. I believe, it is my belief, that the people watching this programme, of these news stories, there will be a significant proportion of them. To what extent that is, I don't know. But I believe, based on my perception of how people engage with media and social media, that of the people watching the news, they're probably more interested in this story and the next story than the first story. They won't understand the importance of the injustice and the impact on our lives, and they'll be more interested in, oh, shiny, what's happening here?
Arrives at court in Paris to testify in the trial of a gang nicknamed the Grandpa Robbers, accused of holding her at gunpoint and taking millions of pounds worth of jewellery.
There are many crimes that take place every day, but this news channel is choosing to report on the crime perpetrated against somebody who is a public figure, because that is what they deem the public will want to hear about. Okay, that's the dynamic. I'm not going to get into an argument about the rights and wrongs of that, but like I say, I believe there's going to be a lot of people more interested in that story than the first story. Or they can't wait to hear what this part of the news broadcast is going to be about.
The costumes, the colour, the craziness, the Eurovision bandwagon arrives in Basel, ready.
The craziness, the show. Hey, it's going to be exciting, everybody. Again, don't have data. There's nothing that can substantiate my opinion here, but sadly I believe we live in a society whereby there is a proportion of society's interests will be more interested in those two stories than the key fundamental story that can fundamentally impact our lives in a negative manner that needs to be addressed.
For tonight's first semi-final, but who will win this year's contest?
In the Midlands, fears that green energy from landfill that obviously plans.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the News at 1. The case of a man who served nearly 40 years in prison for murder is being reviewed by the Court of Appeal this lunchtime after new DNA evidence came to light. Peter Sullivan was convicted of killing Diane Sindel in 1987. She'd been beaten, raped and left in an alleyway on her way home from work. Sullivan maintains his innocence, and if this conviction is overturned, it will become one of the UK's longest-running miscarriages of justice. Well, our correspondent Tom Simons is outside court this lunchtime. What's been heard so far today?
Well, I can tell you that the judge in this case, the senior appeal court judge, Lord Justice Holroyd, is giving his judgment as we speak. I'm going to keep looking down because we are expecting his decision and the three judges' decision about Peter Sullivan's conviction really any second. But to give...
Lord, we've got somebody with a title that's going to wear a wig and going to wear a cape and is presented to us as having all this superior knowledge and power. And essentially, okay, there are some dynamics of this that every single one of us is capable of understanding. Law is presented to us as being, wow, look at this, everybody. Quite simply, if there's something that can identify somebody's guilt or not, we're all capable of understanding that. The victim, the original victim of the crime, the lady who lost her life and who was raped. There will be semen evidence. Semen. The semen of the perpetrator that they have the DNA sample of. When you make that comparison with this guy's semen and compare the two, if it doesn't match, then the likelihood is he was not the rapist. Do each and every one of us, do we have the ability to understand that? Now, yes, there can be problems with that. There can be cross-contamination of samples due to failure. But there is a mechanism, which is a scientific mechanism where trust is placed upon that mechanism to find out accurately whether there is a match or not. And if there's no match, that would demonstrate that he's not the person that committed that act. But only a judge can decide whether he did that or not. What the fuck? Why are we kind of treated that, oh well, we're all waiting on tenterhooks to see whether a judge has decided whether he did it or not? Strange, isn't it? It's rather strange. Can't it be revealed? Hang on a minute, they've now tested the DNA and it doesn't match. That would indicate he's not the person that did that, wouldn't it? Oh, but we're waiting to hear what the judges say. I'm just going to rewind that.
Senior appeal
Court this lunchtime. What's been heard so far today?
Well, I can tell you that the judge in this case, the senior appeal court judge, Lord Justice Holroyd, is giving his judgment as we speak. I'm going to
giving his judgment.
Keep looking down because we are expecting his decision and the three judges' decision about Peter Sullivan's conviction really any second. But to give you the background, Diane was working at a pub that night. She tried to drive home. She ran out of petrol. She then started walking in the night time and someone attacked her. She was attacked with what was thought to be a heavy object. She was beaten around the head. She was sexually assaulted and raped. Now, Peter Sullivan was in his early 20s.
So let's always hold this to be the fundamental thing that we need to achieve justice for. A lady has been the victim of a crime. Died. And there's a perpetrator of that act and they need to be held to account for that. Families have suffered a loss. So you need to find the right person, don't you? You can't just say, well, we need to find somebody to take accountability for this. No, you need to find the right person. And you need to make sure you've got the right person. Otherwise, it's an injustice that you've not got the right person. If you have a crime perpetrated against you, the person that needs to be punished for it is the person who was guilty of perpetrating it. Okay? If you are, it can be relatively to this, a trivial crime. You can suffer a theft. You could suffer a mild assault. Somebody could punch you in the face. Somebody could steal your wallet. Okay? Relative to this, a mild crime. You want to see justice. You want to see the perpetrator punished for their acts. It is not acceptable for the police to go, oh, well, what we'll do, we'll charge this guy over here with the crime. He's not the one that punched you in the face. He's not the one that stole your wallet. That's not okay.
Early to mid-20s at that time. This is in 1986. And he was arrested. There was evidence against him, the police said. He was taken to trial. He had been seen at a pub nearby.
There was evidence against him, the police said. Now, we live in a different world to what things were like in the 1980s. Again, the trolls will try to discredit what I'm going to say here. However, because again, I can't present you the evidence, but there are reports that are freely available if you do your research that in the 80s and prior to the 80s, there was a culture within policing of beating confessions out of people. People were not necessarily aware of that at those times. There were probably 4 television channels available to us in the UK. The kinds of programmes that people watched weren't necessarily the types of police drama which would have depicted police beating confessions out of people. People didn't know that that was a dynamic. If you were the victim of that, who would believe you? You've got no evidence of that. The police? Oh, they're never going to do anything wrong. They're all people of integrity, aren't they? Yes, they're agents of the law. They would never do that. But it's evident, well, there will be evidence that there was a culture of police perpetrating crime in order to present that they were capable of achieving results. This was a crime that went on national television. A crime that the country, the people of the country, need to be convinced that there is an effective system of finding the perpetrators to crime and holding them to justice. The police have their role in achieving that. What doesn't want to be presented to the public is the notion that, well, it can't do that. It's ineffective in doing that. That actually doesn't give the public any confidence in the system, does it? So the police need to be able to get results. They need to be able to put up somebody in front of the watching world and say, yes, we've done our job and we've found this person who is guilty. How did they do that? How did they do that? How did they get this man to confess? Did he confess of his own free will? Was he under duress? Was he threatened? Was he beaten? These are questions. Is there any video evidence of how that man was treated by that police force from the moment he was arrested on suspicion of that crime through to his confession and that trial? And the answer is no, there won't be. So we can't demonstrate it, can we? This is a problem. Now that we are more aware as a society, aware that that is a dynamic that could be taking place or was a possibility of being taken place during that time span, each and every one of those cases, which fundamentally the factor that led to the conviction was a confession. Is there any other evidence that is actually compelling evidence? Because just the confession alone is now cast into doubt due to that dynamic. Was the person who confessed the victim of malpractice within policing that beat confessions out of people that were not true? And I don't know, and you don't know. All we need to identify is that's a failing of the system. That's a dynamic that we now understand. And now understanding that dynamic, it is possible that there are more than one person in our prison system who is there and they should not be there, because they had a confession beaten out of them by a police force to admit to something that they were not guilty of. So each and every one of those cases needs a thorough review, and it needs to be done very quickly, because whilst this time is ticking by, the freedoms of innocent people are being continued to be taken away from them. It's an ongoing injustice, an ongoing miscarriage of justice. Everything needs to be done in a timely manner with great urgency.
Been identified by witnesses near where some clothes were found at a pub. There was evidence against him, the police said. He was taken to trial. He had been seen at a pub near.
The police said there was evidence against him and they took him to trial. He was seen at a pub. You were seen at a pub. On the night somebody was murdered, somebody saw you at a pub. Okay? Now let's build this picture up of you and your existence and your life. You are in an area, and in that area, on that night, somebody is murdered. You were seen at a pub.
Nearby, he'd been identified by witnesses near where some clothes were found burnt. A neighbour had said
there's a local park. The victim's clothes were burnt there. You were seen at that park because you attended that park. So you were seen at a pub, and then somebody has seen you at a park. Okay. Well, how have we identified this? Have police taken some pictures of people and then gone and asked random people, have you seen any of these 10 photographs, these pictures of these 10 people? Have you seen any of these 10 people here in this location? Oh, well, yeah, I think I've seen that one there. And then we'll go to the park with these 10 pictures. Have you seen any of these 10 people down the park? Or do you remember seeing any of these 10 people down the park on that day? Oh, yeah, I think I saw that person there. Bingo! We've got him. Somebody's seen somebody at a pub nearby. Somebody's seen the same person at a park nearby. That must be him.
he'd borrowed a crowbar, which was thought to be potential.
The murder weapon was what we think was a heavy object. Let's go and knock the doors of the guy that's our main suspect. Is there anything suspicious about your neighbour? Yeah, he borrowed a crowbar from me the other day. Yeah, what do you think he needed to do with that? Did he have a job to do, or was he intending on going to use that as a murder weapon? A neighbour said he borrowed a crowbar off me. Oh, this is all adding to the to his guilt, isn't it?
Potential murder weapon, possible links to fibres and...
Possible links? Possibly? That's possible, isn't it? Lots of things are fucking possible, aren't they?
And he made some admissions.
Okay. Now, them admissions are likely to be things where it's going to impact all of us. If he admitted to something, by admitting something, then you're going to go, well, you won't admit to something you didn't do. But like I say, back in the 1980s, people were less aware of the situation. There was the notion of police brutality, beating confessions out of people. People were not aware that that is practice that took place. Therefore, people would take a confession and accept it to be evidence of somebody confessing to a crime, confessing guilt. Now that we know that that dynamic is questionable, that's something that we can't rely on confession alone that was confessed under those circumstances to act as certainty of somebody's guilt. So it's cases that now need to be revisited.
Now, the judge has said in the last few minutes that the decision of the court is that it is impossible to regard that conviction of Peter Sullivan back in 1986 as safe. Now, he's continuing to give...
There you go. It isn't safe. In order to deem somebody guilty of a crime, so effectively you are arriving at a decision where you have a degree of certainty, you have to reach a threshold. And with all of that context, with all of those things that I've just talked about, how can you be certain that that person is guilty of that crime? And if you're not certain that he is the right guy, how can you lock him up for 40 years, 38 years of his life? We think this could be you. You that were at the pub that night, you that went to the park that night, or that following day, or the days in which, where, oh, we found some burnt clothes there. You went to that park, didn't you? Yeah, you borrowed a crowbar off your neighbour. Yeah, we think you did it. We're coming in for questioning. You're going to confess to this. We need to show the nation's public that we are capable of catching the killer here. This is you. We're going to imprison you for the next 38 years of your life. Justice. This is justice. Now, what I'm saying to you is, hopefully, that doesn't happen these days, right? But it did happen. We know that it has happened. We know for some time that confessions have been beaten out of people by police forces, by corruption within that law enforcement aspect of our society. That's not a new thing. And yet, rather than at those points in times review those cases of people who have been imprisoned on that basis, what's going on? People are still having their freedoms taken.
Give his judgment, so we won't say that his conviction has been quashed, which I think is what his side is waiting to hear. I'm just hearing that we have just been told that Peter Sullivan, a man who's been imprisoned for 38 years, he's aged 68, has had his conviction quashed. He's in on a video link from HMP Wakefield.
So he's 68, right? He's been in prison for 38 years. So he's been imprisoned since around the age of 30, depending on when his birthday fell, from around about the age of 29 or 30, because 38 years later he's now 68. This reporter describes him as being in his early to mid-20s. Now, minor things, the key points here are the crime, but this is media with pretty strong inaccuracies about what they're reporting. Media should be professional organisations accountable for delivering accurate information to people, because if you're informing people of a situation, surely you should have the competence to inform people of accuracy. These are professional. I'm a social media content creator. I'm doing this in my spare time to try and expose things that are wrong. Okay, so yes, I need to hold myself to account for trying to inform people of things in the right manner and with accuracy. Now, people again will argue about in the right manner. I try to do things in ways that twist people's minds, because I sometimes people need to be kicked in the mind to actually get themselves to think about things a certain way, because we're all conditioned. We're conditioned that this is the normal way of receiving information, and this is how to do it with integrity. And although we're lying, we are the people wearing the suits, and we're the people that speaking calmly and articulate ourselves in such a manner that you are convinced as to the authenticity of what I say. This is conditioning, which is why I say wake the fuck up. And people will not like that. People will object to me saying like that. But sometimes there needs to be something that makes you go, shit, I need to start thinking about this a different way. Because maybe what I'm presented with, maybe what I'm conditioned with to accept as being normal, as to being acceptable, maybe it isn't. And maybe it can change. And maybe it's not that difficult to make those changes. So if it's not that difficult to make those changes, why aren't we making those changes? Why is it that Lord Chief Justice, what we need to do is we'll we'll need to do a review of this to decide if the bar, the threshold that you've got to jump before we decide whether we are going to allow you to ask us for an appeal. What the fuck? Something is wrong. What are you going to do about it? I want an answer now. We can do something. There is potentially people imprisoned on the grounds that they've made a confession that may have been beaten out of them. Let's have a review of all of the cases where that dynamic could be possible, and let it see if it needs to be DNA comparisons that could absolve them, that could demonstrate that they're not the perpetrator. And let's do that, and let's do that now. It can take weeks, and we can demonstrate within a matter of weeks whether or not there are cases which are similar to this, where there are people that have been convicted of a crime and DNA evidence will demonstrate that they were not the perpetrator. Oh, well, we'll take 3 or 4 years to make a review of the situation to decide whether those applying for that, who are claiming they're guilty, whether we're going to allow them to appeal to see if they can have their case retested and re-looked at. What the fuck? What is the system that we are living in? It is not fit for purpose, and it can affect our lives. You could have been that guy in the pub that night. You could have been the guy that went down the park. Oh yeah, I saw him down the park as well. You could have been the guy that, oh, you borrowed a crowbar off your neighbour. And you did fuck all else other than to get smashed by the fucking police, and you end up in prison and have lost 40 years of your life. There's a lot more to this, so let's carry on.
He is crying, and he's being told in court that his conviction is quashed. Colleagues in court are saying there are people in the public gallery in court crying. And to give you an example of why this matters so much, this is a miscarriage of justice we now hear that is the longest involving somebody who is still alive. And to give you some more background to the case, let's have this from Dominic Casciani.
38 years. That man has lost his life. The prime years of his life, 38 years of them, he has lost. Now let's be clear. There's a lady that is the victim of this, that lost her life and was raped. But there's another victim, now a man, that lost 38 years of his life. 38 years of the prime life. What remains of his life is however many years, which is indeterminate. But the remaining years are now 68 years. Failing health, failing ability, a body in decline. What is the quality of life he can now experience? What can he now go on to accomplish and achieve? What were his hopes and dreams in life? His ambitions of having a family, forging relationships, impacting the world in what could have been the way that he could have had an impact. Ripped away from him by a system, by a corrupt system that needed to please the crowds, needed to satisfy the people and what the people thought, to demonstrate to the people that they could have belief in the system that would catch the murderer and rapist, show that we're doing our job, that we can do this. You're safe with us. This is the robust system. And it fucks somebody. That's the problem, isn't it?
Almost 38 years in jail, now told he is an innocent man.
Now told he's an innocent man. I think he knew that. He'll know whether or not he did it. Now, people could have the doubts. Oh, I still think he did. But if the DNA says that he wasn't the rapist, because if that is the technology that we are supposed to rely on, and I'm no expert of DNA, but what we are told is that they can match to define in a semen sample. They can take a sample of where it has been deposited. They can then take a sample from the other male, and they can compare the two samples and determine if they are from the same person or not. And if them two samples are different, that would serve to demonstrate that the person who has perpetrated the rape is not the person who they've taken the sample from. And if that is what we now use as our way of determining guilt, then this man is not guilty of that rape, unless there has been a failure of that process. So what do we place our reliance on? Do we place our reliance on that science, or do we place our reliance on what you think? Oh, well, I don't think the science is any good. I still think he's guilty because he admitted guilt. Oh, but he might have had that beating out of him. Yeah, but I still think, oh, he looks the sort, doesn't he? I don't like him. Let's convict him by a jury of his peers and what they think, shall we? How people think about the situation, what their opinions are based on what is presented to them. Do you want to be convicted by a jury of your peers? Do you want your life to be in the hands of what other people think you're guilty of?
This is Peter Sullivan, jailed in 1987 for one of the most shocking crimes of that decade. He was convicted of murdering 21-year-old Diane Sindel in Birkenhead on the Wirral. Miss Sindel was a much-loved florist and bartender, saving up for her coming marriage. Late at night in August 1986, her van ran out of petrol on the way home, and as she walked in the dark, her killer struck here on one of the town's main roads.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting that we live in a world where people perpetrate this. But it's what happens, sadly. Now, I've not researched this case. I don't know any more than what is being reported in the media at the moment. And if you go onto different media channels, it's actually reported slightly different. There's different numbers quoted. But reviewing this information that is presented to us, I'm hoping that I can demonstrate to you the flaws with what is being presented to us as to what took place, and the flaws with the process and what we are told. We are given these as being reasons to believe that to have been the original situation. I was not involved in that investigation, involved in that case, involved in those legal proceedings. So there might be things within all of that we can drill down to that would render what I'm talking about to have major inaccuracies with it. I'm going through the information that they present to us, and I'm trying to demonstrate to you the issues with that.
Diane was killed sometime around midnight on Friday, August the 1st, on Borough Road in Birkenhead.
So desperate were the police for leads.
So desperate were the police for leads.
They went nationwide, telling the BBC's Crime Watch they had no idea who the killer was.
So they went on the Crime Watch programme, which was one of the prime time TV programmes of the day. That, you know, four TV channels we had for people to spend their evenings in their living rooms watching the telly. Okay, this was one of the programmes that people would watch and be interested in. Crime Watch. Which are the crimes that are taking place in our country, and are our crimes that people could be the victims of? Have we got a police force that's good enough to solve these crimes and hold these perpetrators to account? If somebody's a murderer, are you going to get caught for being a murderer? Are we safe in this country?
We haven't got any sightings whatsoever of Diane walking back along Borough Road towards the town centre.
Nobody saw her that night.
Nobody saw who snatched Diane Sindel off this busy road and go on to murder her in this alleyway. And it took the police weeks to conclude that Peter Sullivan was their prime suspect.
Took them weeks to decide that they want to identify him as it. Who was in the area that night? Who was out in the pubs that night? Oh, you had to be in a pub, did you? Okay, let's have a list of the people that were in pubs that night. Okay, he was one of them. How many people were out in the pubs that night? 20, 40, 60, 100? Don't know. Okay, of that list of people, we've now found some burnt belongings in a park. Let's take some photographs of those people who were out in pubs that night, and go and say, who was it? Who? We'll go down to that park. Who was in the park on this day? Have you seen any of these people? Oh, I've seen him. I've seen him down the park. Oh, there we go. We've got a match. Somebody that was in the pub and now is in a park or on some beauty spot, wasteland, whatever it might be. What's that an indicator of? Somebody being in a pub and somebody then being on a bit of ground. So, what does that prove?
37 years on, that conviction was thrown into doubt by evidence that had been gathered from the crime scene. New DNA.
So, they took the DNA samples from the crime scene, from the victim.
Testing pointed to another man. Peter Sullivan's trial heard he'd been spotted at this beauty spot where
DNA testing pointed to another man. Right? How long has DNA testing been a thing? How long has DNA testing been a thing? Do you think that would be a way of testing some of the cases where people are being locked up in this country before DNA testing was possible, but they've still got the evidence there? Are we going back to all of those cases and doing checks? Let's just check the DNA matches here. We can actually check all of these people that are in prison, and we can actually confirm whether they're the right people who are in prison. Are you doing those checks? Oh, we're getting Lord Chief Justice, the fucker in a wig. He's going to do a review and decide the level of the bar that you've got to jump to get your legal team to apply to the bar as to whether they'll allow you permission to ask if your case can be reviewed. And then the judge might say, no, we're not going to give you permission to review your case. Come back in 6 years and we'll go through 6 more years of legal wranglings with your legal team, applying for a decision from a court and raising an appeal to a court to ask if you're allowed to appeal to protest your innocence. This is our corrupt fucking system that is not fit for purpose.
some of the victims' belongings were set alight. Sullivan admitted the killing to the police, but then retracted his.
So again, that notion of admittance at the time would have been sufficient to convince a judge/jury that this guy, well, if you've admitted something, why would you do so if you weren't guilty of it? Because many of us would hold on to that position that there is no way I would admit to something that I did not do. But sadly, the dynamics of the situation in the past were different. There are people who are susceptible to intimidation, susceptible to giving in when they're victims of brutality. Okay, that did take place in terms of at those times there were cases of police brutality beating confessions out of people. Now that we understand that that was a dynamic, then that brings into question the notion of confessions. Confessions, now that we've got a system whereby police interviews are recorded and police cells are recorded, so that any interactions from the moment you're arrested, it should all be evidence as to how you are being treated. It's less likely that you are likely to suffer being beaten in that way, and there should be some sort of evidence trail to perform, to demonstrate that. I'm not saying that's foolproof, but what I'm saying is, up to a point where that was introduced, the notion of a police confession is something that isn't 100% evidence of you admitting to something, because there are doubts to that. So again, that's a dynamic where we need to say, well, cases where people's convictions hinged on the confession, well, we actually need to look at the other evidence and see if the other evidence actually constitutes compelling evidence, because that alone isn't compelling evidence anymore, can't be deemed as that.
Confession. 4 decades on, the DNA profile that's overturned Peter Sullivan's conviction was obtained by the Criminal Cases Review Commission. In 2021, he asked it for help.
In 2021, he asked it for help. We're in 2025. 4 years ago, an imprisoned man asked for help. I'm innocent. This isn't the first thing either. I don't know if I've missed this out. Hopefully I've not. This is 2021. 2021 is going, need help here. There's a test that you can do. You can test that DNA sample. You can test mine, and that will demonstrate my innocence. We'll have a think. You're imprisoned. You're in prison. I'm not guilty. Yeah, we'll have a think. You're losing 4 more years of your life whilst they're having a think. While Lord Chief Justice is having a review and determining where he's going to set the bar, the threshold for where legally they're going to say the law, the rules of the law are going to enable you to make an appeal to the court, for the court to decide whether it's going to allow you to appeal. This is a system of justice, everybody. Justice. The construct, the system that they have to deliver justice. That is a fucked up system. When you can identify that that is fucked up, why is it fucked up, and why do they not change it? Oh, we've got rules that mean you can't change it. In order to change it, we have to do a thorough review. We have to go through an adversarial process. Well, there'll be lawyers and barristers and experts of law that will argue the merits of law and whether lawfully and legally we can challenge this. The Emperor's new clothes, everybody. But the Right Honourable Lord Chief Justice in the wigs will determine that. Oh, it's all unsafe, isn't it? Yeah, it fucking is, isn't it? Strange that. But you need to be a lawyer. You need to have a law degree. You need to have a year at law school. You need to then do your 5 years as a lawyer. You need to then be a member of the bar. You need to be a barrister. You need to be part of the King's Council. You need to be part of the judiciary. It's all fucking bollocks, isn't it? You need to be part of the Chancery, the Lord Chancellor, the fucking court of this, the court of that, the court of the other, the this court, the that court, the Supreme Court, the fucking Crown Court, fucking bullshit. Don't you worry your little heads about law. You won't be able to understand it. You need legal advice. You need a lawyer. That'll cost you money. That's the construct of the profession. Go and get legal advice from a lawyer. Go and pay a person that you don't know their competence, but get them to make you an argument to try and challenge the system. To engage in an adversarial process, a game of tennis, ping pong, back and forth. I say this, you say that. I say this, you say that. And they've got a judge that reviews the situation and makes a ruling on it. How about we rely on fucking evidence? How about we rely on evidence? We make a swift call. We drill down to what we need to do here. Because when you problem solve, it's quite easy. Google it. Google, how do you solve a problem? Yeah? How do you solve a problem? And it will give you a step-by-step process. Identify the problem. Okay? Drill down to the fundamental problem, what it is, and to identify the dynamics of it. Then identify the solutions, the possible solutions. Work through those as to what they then produce, and then decide upon which ones you're going to embark on. Then you monitor it and see, is this actually fit for purpose? Is this achieving what it needs to achieve? And if it's not, we then go back to the drawing board and modify that, make amendments. It's an iterative process. Okay, making continual improvements to produce the best thing that we can. What have they produced? A system that works for who? Lots of lawyers are making money out of this, and the establishment, yeah, that the status quo remains, doesn't it? Is it fit for purpose? Is it delivering justice? Or are there significant flaws? Highlighted flaws. Flaws that are easy to identify, and nothing is being done about them, and nothing is being done in a timely manner. Because justice delayed is justice denied. Motherfuckers!
And it forensically examined evidence taken from the victim, something it had refused to do 16 years ago.
16 years ago, they've refused to test it. 16 years ago, they refused this man's request to test the DNA. 16 years of this man's life. Age 52, this man had the opportunity, had the chance of them finding that he was not the guy. And the bastards kept him in prison for a further 16 years. They ignored him. They ignored him for 16 fucking years. And he's in prison. Now they go on to say, well, this technology's been around for 10. So he asked 16 years ago. The technology's been there for 10. He asked in 2021. What's the fucking real timeline out of this? Over what times? What is the actual timeline of exactly what has taken place in this case? Because again, we are getting fed something that this is the BBC's account of the situation, and we can clearly identify that it's not all accurate. They've even got his fucking age wrong in the first instance. All right? And again, I am mindful that in the first instance of this video, I said I've got a responsibility to present this in the right manner. But you know what? The perpetrators of this, ultimately, those people in positions of responsibility within a system to make that system effective, have got a responsibility to make that system effective. Not just fucking wash their hands of it and go, oh, yeah, there's nothing I can do. This is legal. This is the mechanism. I'm powerless to impact. No, it's your fucking job to do it. Do it. Somebody made it that way, and it can be changed. Oh, they made it that way. They made the rule that we can't change it. Oh, so we then live in tyranny for eternity, do we? Somebody made a rule that was fucking wrong. It can be demonstrated by what is taking place, resulting in injustice. So that means the rule being applied in that way means that justice fucking is failed. Well, it's an invalid rule then, isn't it? So fucking change it. It's your job. You are here to serve justice, not serve establishment, not serve a system that is designed to make fucking lawyers fucking money. That's what it's about. Injustice, impacting people's lives, you bastards. Of all you fucking lawyers, of all you judges, of all of you cunts that went into the legal profession, did you do it because you cared about justice? Did you do it because you cared about people's lives? Or did you do it because you went, oh, there's a profession where I can make a fuck load of money? What did you go in there for? Oh, because there's a profession where they make a fuck load of money. This is the facade. This is fucking not justice. Bastards!
It acted this time after being warned it had missed a similar DNA opportunity in the case of Andy Malkinson.
How did this happen? Innocent and not guilt, and not the only one. This is not something that they don't know about. Reform the system. This is the guy. This isn't the guy that's just had his conviction quashed. This is somebody that was convicted of a rape. And the DNA proved that he didn't do it. And yet he'd been imprisoned. This is somebody else that they're showing that he has suffered the same injustice. Not to the same magnitude. He didn't lose 38 years of his life. But he still suffered that injustice due to this system. Due to this system.
Later exonerated of rape. This result means Diane Sindall's real killer got away with it. The unknown attacker was free, while Peter Sullivan endured one of the worst miscarriages of justice in British legal history. Dominic Hashani, BBC News.
A justice system, miscarriage of justice. Well, that's not fit for purpose, is it? There's failings that are easy to identify. There are solutions. And what's happening? Nothing. Quite simply, we've got a prison population whereby we can identify who they all are. We can look at the cases. Who's in prison? Who was imprisoned at what time for what crime? What was the evidence? Okay, there should be databases of all this. Is the possibility of doing DNA comparisons to make certain sure that we've got the right person, the right, if it's a rape crime, it's likely to be a guy, isn't it? Have we got the right guy for the rape? Have we got the right guy that's for the murder, right? Does the DNA at the crime scene match the DNA of that person? Let's just test everybody that fits that criteria. People who are serving prison sentences on the basis that they made a police confession prior to the point in time where police interviews were all captured on camera. Can we rely on those confessions as having not being beaten out of them? Are we to trust the integrity of an agent of law who maybe is under pressure to achieve results and was part of a culture of we can do what the fuck we want because we're not going to be accountable for it? We're the police. We've got integrity. You trust us. Just like we're the judges. We've got integrity. Everybody trusts us. We're not accountable for that. Yeah, well, we'll fucking see about that, you cunts.
And what is the significance of this? Well, you heard Dominic there mention the case of Andrew Malkinson. His conviction for rape was quashed in 2023. Many questions were asked of the Criminal Cases Review Commission that plays a part in deciding what cases go to the Court of Appeal.
So let's just again look at this. You've been wrongly convicted of something, so you have to appeal. Okay? You have just convicted me of a crime that I've not done. Well, you can appeal. Okay.
It was quashed in 2023. Many questions were asked of the Criminal Cases Review Commission that plays a part in deciding what cases go to the Court of Appeal and potentially.
They decide whether or not you're allowed to appeal or whether your appeal is going to be heard. No, we're not going to let you appeal.
Are quashed. Now, in this case, it's been made pretty clear in this morning's hearing that the new DNA evidence, not new because it came from.
So it's not new. It's just like when Martin Brundle goes, "It's not new. It's not new." Yeah. We know. We can see the evidence. We've got the TV footage of something actually happening. That's evidence of something actually happening.
Diane's body at the time is new because there were only new techniques capable of working out whose DNA it was that were invented in about 2015. Now,
so 2015, the reports again, the timeline. The guy that was imprisoned and has been in prison for 38 years, 16 years ago, he asked for his DNA samples to be compared. There were techniques available 10 years ago that could have proven his innocence, proven that his DNA sample was not the DNA sample that would have been deposited by the person who had perpetrated the rape. That is what the evidence would suggest. 10 years ago. He's asked 16 years ago. Declined. They refused. 10 years ago. They're saying the technology was developed 10 years ago. Did he ask then? Well, it's saying his legal team was asking for it back then. Refused. You're in prison. You're screaming for help. You're saying, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. Nah. Unlucky, mate. Unlucky. We'll ask a judge to see if they're going to let us get the samples and compare them. Judge says no. Judge says no. He's not going to let you. Where's the consequence for the judge? Oh, the judge has got immunity. The judge cannot be held to account for his decision making. We've got the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office, and they can't investigate a judge for the decisions that the judge makes. We've got a layer of society that's above justice, above the law. Are they really? Have they made the system that way to protect themselves? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? You might ask why I know all of this. Maybe it'll all come out one day. Maybe it'll all come out one day.
Peter Sullivan's team have fought a battle since then to get his case heard, so there will still, I think, be questions about whether the system is working for people faced.
There will be questions about whether the system is working. There'll be questions. Let me know your opinion on whether you think the system is working or not. We'll get to the comment section in a bit.
With potential miscarriages of justice, and there is a review going on.
That, is the system working for potential miscarriages of justice? And there's a review going on
About whether the barrier, the bar that needs to be jumped to have a case.
Is the bar that needs to be jumped about having a case
reviewed at the Court of Appeal is too high.
Yeah, the bar that you've got to jump, the threshold that you've got to jump for the Court of Appeal to decide whether they're going to review your case or not. Oh, fucking hell. Does this sound like it's a system that's flawed? Is that a system that is open to miscarriages of justice? Is it a possibility that our prison population contains people who are incarcerated who aren't guilty of what they've been incarcerated for? Is that possible? And if it is, why are people locked up, having their freedoms deprived from them for something that they may not be guilty of? Is there a way we can actually try to test that, to try and make that situation more accurate, be more certain that we've got this right? Yes, there are tests that we can do. There are things that we can do. Well, why aren't we doing them then? Oh, well, we'll do a review of that and take 5 years to decide. And a man in a wig and a cape will then present a document with his findings. What a load of wank. But he's the intelligent one. He's the Wizard of Oz with all of the power and all of the intelligence, the mystique. No, he's just a fucking bloke, right, or a woman, human, you and me. We're all the same, all with a hole in our arse. We all go for a shit, okay? We've all got varying levels of abilities in certain fields, okay? Don't try and fucking gaslight me that you're fucking more knowledgeable and more intelligent, because understanding the difference between right and wrong in the context of a different situation, it's not that fucking hard, is it? What's the law, everybody? Yeah, well, it's a code of conduct, eventually. It's a contract for us all, because we're all expected to be law-abiding citizens. We're all expected to not break the law, and we're all expected to understand the notion of what's right. What's right and wrong in this world? What's acceptable and what's not? But if it gets to what's legal, you won't know. You need to pay somebody because you won't understand. Legal, because they've got these big fancy buildings. They've got the theatres, the courts where the game of tennis is played out. You can't play it. You need someone to play it for you that knows how to play the game of legal for you. And it's back and forth. And the judge is the umpire. And they make a lot of money out of you when you're paying them to play it for you. But you won't understand how to play it. There's rules to this game that result in invalid application of those rules, causing miscarriages of justice. Oh, maybe we need to do a review of those rules and decide whether the threshold for that rule is an applicable threshold or not. Carry on playing the game, carry on extracting the money, carry on perpetrating the injustice. The mind conditioning machine, mainstream media is not going to address this. This is not going to cause public outrage. This is not going to cause the 68 million people living in the UK to realise that they're living in a system that's fucked up. And are they? No, they're not. That's not going to put pressure on the system to change itself, is it? No, it's not. Who's that benefiting? Lawyers and judges. They get to carry on making the money, don't they? Operating a system that can be manipulated based on the pick and mix choices that is available to those judges. Which rule do you pick in this situation? Which rule do you pick in that situation as justification for the decision that you make? Does that decision result in an injustice? Well, if it does, it's an invalid decision, isn't it? Yes, because it counters the principle of what it is you should be achieving. Oh yeah, that's the British justice system, everybody. Yeah, fundamentally flawed, isn't it? Fundamentally flawed. Anyway.
So that is still work in progress, and I think this case might well feed into the considerations around that.
This case might well feed into the considerations about that. How about the recent case of a rookie barrister lambasted by the judge for presenting false evidence in court? Yeah? A barrister representing a homeless man has had to go to court because a team of lawyers made up a case for him. Again, this is what I've read in the media about it, so I don't know the truthful nature of this, but you can find it out, but I'm just trying to give you a brief synopsis of it. A barristers. So you've got a team of lawyers, right, which is the team of legal people, right? And then when you get to court, they have to buy a barrister, a performer of the art, the person that can actually be the actor on the court to present the case, all right? They're the legal experts as well. And then you get an even more of a legal expert, a King's Counsel barrister, the experts of the law. They presenting to a court, this system designed for justice, presenting to a judge a case. These are the factual reasons why I'm presenting this argument as to why my client, the person I'm represented, should get this outcome. Okay? They're presenting against a local authority about housing situation, right? So that barrister is presenting as part of their case that these are similar cases whereby these judgments have been made. Hence, this is why you, the judge, should make this judgment in this case. Turns out the 5 cases that they were citing were made up. The use of artificial intelligence had been used to make up those cases. That is a fraud. That is the falsification of something that you intend to rely upon as evidence of you seeking to get a decision to be a certain way. That's fraud. Those team of lawyers created that. It turns out that they weren't actual real cases generated by artificial intelligence. Oh, so you've just done a Google search for cases and the internet has thrown you that. Or you've actually requested artificial intelligence construct you those fucking fake cases. What have you done there? You've committed a fucking fraud. This is lawyers. What's the consequence for those perpetrators committing fraud in a justice system? The profession that must demand the highest of integrity in operators. Otherwise, it's fucking corrupt. What's the consequence for that team of lawyers? You've then got a barrister, the expert of law, not ensuring that what he's presenting in a court is lies. And he presents that. He is guilty of that same fraud. Professional competence, professional negligence. You've got a judge that then should be saying, you are presenting fraudulent information, you are guilty of a fraud, you are guilty of seeking to pervert the course of justice through presenting false evidence. Fraud. You're guilty of a crime. Perjury. Effectively lying to a court of law. Crimes. Punishable with imprisonment. Because it's going to result in a miscarriage of justice. What does the judge do? Lambasts the barrister. Can't question the barrister because the barrister wasn't sworn in. Which rule is that? In some professions, do you have the ability to just go, yeah, I'm a police officer, but I'm not on duty. I'm not sworn in. So whilst there's a crime going on over there, yeah, doesn't matter. Leave it. It's fine. I'm a doctor. Somebody's dying over there. Yeah, I'm not on duty. Just leave it. It's fine. I'm working a school. There's a child being abused over there. Yeah, just leave it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. The barrister hadn't been sworn in by the court, so the judge couldn't question him about lying to the court. What? Oh, which rule's that then? Is that rule fit for purpose? What's the system? It's all bullshit, isn't it? It's all bullshit, isn't it? Yes, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Surely, the moment you step into a court, as somebody who works in fact, the way you should conduct yourself in your daily life is with integrity. But you should be well aware that the moment you step into a court for a legal trial, a legal hearing, then anything you will say is going to be used as evidence. So if you present anything, then if that's fraudulent information, you've presented fraudulent information to a court. Oh, but you hadn't promised that you wouldn't say anything like that, so we can't hold you to account for saying something like that. What a load of bullshit. That's a tool of manipulation, isn't it? Can you not see that it's a tool of manipulation? The rule of the rule books of pick and choose rules. Go and Google the CPR, the Civil Procedures Rules. 2 books, the fucking thickness of Lord of the Rings, of pick and mix rules. They're all bollocks. They're all bollocks. Because each one of them they can choose them or not to choose them, depending. Yeah. So what they're designed to be, they're designed to confuse the layman so that you can't understand them. Don't you worry, little heads. You need legal advice. Go pay for it. You want to utilise any other service, then it's a requirement that that service makes itself accessible to you. Not the legal service, though. Not the justice service. You've got to pay for an operative to represent you within that service. It's all bullshit.
That review. But the other thing we should say is at the end of this, there is Diane Sindel, the victim of this crime, and her family, who now don't know who killed her.
So let's not lose sight of that. Let's not lose sight of the fact that there's a woman that lost her life, suffered. And there's a man that then suffered too. He was a wrong guy.
Tom, outside the court.
So let's just go to the comments section. Remember, the problem we've got in this world, part of our justice system, is that if you are charged with an offence, and the police have, hopefully things have improved since the 1980s, but if you are charged with an offence and you are then taken to trial for that offence, certain crimes are tried by jury. Your peers, a group of 12 people selected, which supposedly your peers, people who live in the same society as you do. Of what competence, of what level of intelligence, of what ability to see things for what they really fucking are. Oh, but they're determining whether or not you are going to be incarcerated and have your freedoms taken away from you based on what their opinion is. So let's have a look at what the varying opinions of people are, because this is what your life could be determined by. It's fucked up, and this is why I will fucking try. No, this is why the cunts in the comments section, okay, are some of the worst of mankind. They won't realise that they're worst of mankind. They think they're entitled to their opinion, but they're brain dead cunts, many of them. This is one. John Gibson's a brain dead cunt. Okay, trolls the channel. This is somebody calls himself Dave now. John Gibson trolled my channel on my page on YouTube, identifying injustice, and then sought me out on YouTube to come here to troll the channel because he gets off on that. That's who he is. Acts as the victim when you say this is John Gibson and this is who he does, and then pretends that he's the victim of that. But this is John's comment. The British legal system works in the vast majority of cases. Thanks for your valuable insight, John. Thanks for your level of experience and knowledge on the matter. Yeah, you've been conditioned, haven't you? You've got a true understanding of the failings of it. But in your opinion, with all of your gathered evidence, you think it works, don't you, John? Can you tell me where it doesn't work? Would you like to be a victim of when it doesn't work, John? No, you wouldn't, would you? Can it be improved, John? Yeah, it can, can't it, John? So if it can be improved and we can identify where it can be improved, why isn't it being improved? Answer that one. Why isn't it? It's legal. That costs money. Yeah, we pay taxes, John. Yeah, we all have to pay tax so that government provides us the services that are essential for the functioning of a civil society. That justice system for our lives is fucking essential. You've got to fund it correctly. What are you paying these people? Oh, Lord Chief Justice is being paid £300,000 a year plus. Really? Is he saving people's lives? Is he a doctor? What's the Prime Minister, the man in charge of the country, supposedly being paid? 120 grand? Lord Chief Justice. Lady Chief Justice, 300 odd grand a year. Who's the system working for? Yes, legally, you wouldn't know, would you? But you think it's working in the majority of cases. Thanks for your valuable insight, John. Dave, whoever you want to pretend you are. This specific case does not make the entire system institutionally corrupt or unfit for purpose. Thanks for your valuable insight. That's your opinion, isn't it? Have I demonstrated through the explanation of this video that actually there are major institutional failings, but you don't think there are, John. I've clearly identified that there are. Oh, but that's not evidence of them being. That's not evidence. Go and review all the evidence then. Go and review each and every person that's been imprisoned that could have these tests, and let's see how many of them are imprisoned incorrectly. And you know what? Let's see if it turns out that 100% of them are guilty. And if they are, brilliant. What have we done? We've made certain sure. Good. That's what we should be doing. Let's not leave any stone unturned. Let's not have any chance of suffering this injustice, because this is injustice and this should not be tolerated. When things can be done where it doesn't need to be tolerated. There is always going to be failings to a system. But these are completely fucking unjust. These are things where you can easily solve the problem. Easily solve the problem. These individual cases are terrible, but they have to be understood in proportion. Are you understanding them in proportion, John? Are you understanding them in proportion? Or have you come here to project? And every time you project here, what you seek to do is you don't like me, you don't like the content creator, because I'm identifying something that you don't like, because you like Max Verstappen, you like something, and when I'm saying all of that is invalid, and here are the reasons, so everything that I will now say, I will seek to undermine that guy. Yeah. Did the guy that just spent 38 years in prison, did you like him? Did he look the sort, John? Who knows, John? Who knows? Otherwise, panicked or otherwise, shrill calls to rip the legal system down are dangerous, in my opinion. How do we know reforms wouldn't just make it worse? Am I suggesting we should rip it down? No, it needs total reform though. How do we know it wouldn't just make it worse? Well, what we do, we identify, John, what is effective and what isn't. What is working and what isn't. What needs to be addressed and what is actually needs to be the fundamental structure, what needs to be hung upon and where the changes need to be made. And then we make those changes. And then we see how it goes. And if we then identify, well, what is the effect of these changes? Has that improved the situation? Or has that caused us further problems? How do we iterate this? Okay, further make changes to achieve what it is we need to be achieving. How about we do it that way, John? Or, IMO, in my opinion, I think it's okay. Let's just leave it as it is. Wanker. Anyway, Marianne. Right. Now we've got the difference here, right, between a wanker and somebody with intellect. So, that journalist spoke about the victim, but there are two victims. He didn't even dare to say one single word of comparison about the man who shouldn't have been sent to jail for so long. Such so-called justice took his life too. Express justice. I think the people who sent him to prison should be judged too. Accountability. Just like in 2021 Abu Dhabi. Maddening. Now, what I'll say in response to that comment, Marianne, is, yeah, the people that sentenced him in the first instance, maybe we should examine their decision. But we've also got to understand the dynamic being that back in the 1980s, the notion of police brutality to extract confessions out of suspects was not something that would have necessarily been an understood dynamic. So whether that be the jury or the judge even, the judges may well have known. It's highly likely that it will have been known within that system the things that were taking place. Okay, but we can't evidence that necessarily, and we can't evidence that if it was a particular judge, what he would have known or not about that system. Okay, so what we have to do is identify that dynamic might not have been there, so hence the notion of a confession had to be dealt with as if it was a valid confession. The problem becomes is when somebody is seeking to appeal and say, well, actually, I'm not guilty of this, and there is something that can prove that I wasn't guilty of this, and I want you to perform that test, which will demonstrate that I'm not guilty. And when you then have a system that says, no, it's that needs exposing. They're the people that need to stand trial. The appeal process and the appeal judge and those who are operating that system, they're the ones that have deprived this man of 16 years of freedom of his life. 16 years that are entirely unjust. The first 22 years, when it became a thing about the police brutality beating confessions out of people, when that became a known thing, perhaps all the cases which were dependent upon the confession should have been reviewed at that point in time, and to see if there was any other forms of evidence that could have demonstrated innocence. But in the absence of that, when we get to the point of DNA testing, then it's possible to do DNA comparisons to prove people's innocence. Those depriving those people that were making that request of being able to have that test done, which would have demonstrated their innocence, are the fuckers that have kept these people imprisoned, kept them incarcerated unjustly. They're the people that need to be held accountable for their decisions. But they are fucking almost absolved of that. They stand above that. They can't have their decisions questioned. Fuckers. Absolute fuckers. People of integrity. They're all millionaires, they are. They're the ones with the fancy houses, the fancy titles, the fancy cars on their drives, at the gentlemen's clubs, live in their fucking posh houses in their posh areas, looking down on you. Oh, yes, you're the scum of society. Yes, not me. I'm Lord such and such. I'm Lord Chief Justice. I'm Sir this. Fucking cunts is what you really are. Fucking cunts. Operating in the justice profession, the justice sector, under the Ministry of Justice, perpetrating, not acting with the integrity of something that needs to be done to achieve and ensure justice. Normal kind of trolling. Max Verstappen is to blame, obvs. Yeah, thank you for that. We've got a serious issue that we're dealing with, and we get a Max Verstappen fan thinking that, again, I'll undermine the channel by relating it to Max Verstappen. Prickly prick right here. So Prick says this. Well, firstly, Prick's one of the standard trolls here. Well, firstly, this happens worldwide when someone may be convicted even though they're innocent. Yes, injustice happens worldwide, firstly. Thanks for that, Prick. Thanks. So what we're doing, I'm demonstrating my level of intellect by saying, yes, this happens the world over. Let's that demonstrates that we are a rounded person capable of understanding all sides of the situation, doesn't it? Yeah. That demonstrates I'm a critical thinker because I'm able to identify, yes, injustice happens worldwide. Prick. They were given the evidence and pointed to a person. In hindsight, DNA technology wasn't great then and is much better now. Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. So given that compelling evidence was given, they assumed they had the right guy, given the compelling evidence. Now, the only compelling evidence would appear to be a confession. And like I say, at the time, that would have been deemed compelling. Prior to the identification of a dynamic being police brutality beating confessions out of people, confessions would have been deemed to be that's somebody's admission of guilt. So that can be deemed to be compelling. I acknowledge that. The rest of the things aren't compelling. They're circumstantial. He was in a pub. Yeah, he was down the park. Yeah, he borrowed a crowbar. That's compelling. It's not, that bit's not compelling. Right? That bit's not compelling. The only thing that you could deem to be compelling is confession. But again, when you're tried by the jury of your peers, right? 12 people, 12 men and women that don't really know what's compelling and what isn't, your future, your destiny is going to be placed in their hands. And what they think about it in the comments section when they get round into their room and vote on whether you've done it or not. They'll have a vote to decide whether you did it. Yeah, he looks the sort, doesn't he? Yeah, he was down the pub, and yeah, and he was at that area of land where the burnt remains were found. Yeah, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same. Yeah, Andy borrowed that crowbar as well. Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. Right. If you convicted that someone did something even with circumstantial but no concrete 100% evidence, would you still make sure he gets justice and is arrested? What? Let's read this sentence again. This will be one of your peers that determines your future, everybody. So given that compelling evidence was given, they assume they're the right guy. If you convinced that someone did something even with circumstantial but no concrete 100% evidence, would you still make sure he gets justice and is arrested? Is that what are you questioning there? You get arrested if you are suspected of something, right? Then there is the burden of proof. They have to demonstrate that you are guilty of committing an offence. Okay, have they presented enough to demonstrate that you are that guy that is guilty of doing what they've said you have done, the crime that you've committed? What is the evidence that would demonstrate that that is that person that's done that crime and therefore has to be punished? Well, he's confessed to it. Right, and we now know that that's unsafe. A confession is unsafe. Is there evidence available? Are there checks that can be made which might demonstrate that he's not guilty, that he's the wrong guy? Yeah, there's a check that can be made, and that is you compare his semen sample with the semen sample found on that victim. And if it's not the same, then it's highly likely that he's not the person that did it. Oh. So what's justice? Well, we find somebody that we can present to the world as being the person. We found somebody to hold to account for the crime, and they tick that box and they tick that box. That's near enough. That's near enough. That'll do. Justice. James will more than likely say no. More than likely. Which is entitled to his opinion. Thanks for me being entitled to my opinion and you being entitled to yours. And we'll have a vote what people think, what they're conditioned to think, because people don't know how to think. But makes him a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite as well. Let's come here to project that James is in the wrong here, all right? Because he basically accusing people in F1 of making Max champion with no evidence. Yeah, we can evidence exactly what happened there. That evidence being video footage of an event taking place which the rules were broken at. Evidence of all of those people responding in a certain way to those rules being broken. People saying certain things at certain times. TV companies who decide what they show us, what we hear at a moment in time for us to believe it to be a certain way, okay? All that taking place, rules being broken and an outcome being produced. Oh, that's not evidence. Okay, thanks for your valuable insight. Somebody that understands what compelling evidence is. And then there is a court process, and in that court process, the appeals process, the impacted party, at this stage, Lewis Hamilton's representatives, are saying the rules are broken here. So rather than the judges, the FIA stewards, look at the rules, what are the rules? Here are the rules. What took place? Did the race director, the man in charge of applying those rules, did he apply them correctly? No, he didn't. Clearly he didn't, right? Okay, what you've appealed to us as being the situation, you are right. You've appealed that the rules weren't followed, hence you are right. Did that then constitute, that failing change the outcome of that event? Yes, it did, because had those rules been applied, that race would have ended behind the safety car. That is a matter of fact, and therefore, is the outcome that was produced wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Rather than go down that process, those judges asked Red Bull what they thought in the comment section. The beneficiaries of the crime, they asked them to present their case to the situation, and then those judges of the situation went, oh yes, we believe what Red Bull said. You don't understand the notion of justice or judicial process, do you, Colin? Prick. You don't get it, do you? But thanks for your opinion in the comments section. Thanks for that. And then every TV company that has presented this, every media company that has presented anything about Formula One has never presented the truth. That's strange, isn't it? That would demonstrate that there's a systematic agenda of lies to mislead people. Oh, that's not evidence of that. Well, when you inform people of the truth, when you inform people categorically that this is actually the situation, I'm telling you, this media organisation, the BBC, that this is the truth of that situation, and that media organisation doesn't then go back to that story and say, this is what we told you all about this. It turns out that actually this is the real situation. They've not done that, have they? Why not? There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for misleading people and then not returning to that to explain to people that you might have misled them. You've got an obligation to do that. Like apologising when you might have got something wrong. Funny that, isn't it? Apologising and also compensating. If you've caused harm, compensating. for what you've done that's caused damage. You've got to try and ensure that you don't conduct yourself in a manner that causes damage. But you've also got to ensure that you don't conduct yourself in a manner. So you trolls that come here that don't like being called cunts, okay? Quite simply, don't be cunts, okay? Because if you're not a cunt, I don't call you a cunt. But if you are a cunt, I'll call you a cunt. Because you're a cunt. That's what it is. Oh, you've done me damn... No. You are causing the problem. And I'm identifying that you are the problem. You might not like my language. I don't care about that. Don't do what you're doing. And that applies to those judges that I've called cunts. Why am I calling you? I'm calling you cunts because you're not doing the job that you should be doing. But you're taking the money for that, aren't you? Well, that's corruption, isn't it? That's disgusting. You're part of a system that you could be changing. You've got a duty to change. You've got a duty to the people to make sure that the system that you operate in, you're operating under to serve justice for the people. You're not. But you're taking the money, aren't you? Now, what sort of cunt does that? What sort of cunt does that? You're not fit. You're not fit to be the person entrusted to such a position. But you won't change, will you? You'll hide behind rules and process and continue taking your money. And the media will still present you as the Wizard of Oz with all the knowledge and all the power. And you'll use your rules and tyranny to actually impact those that challenge you. That's tyranny. That's a cunt. So, if the cap fits, wear it. So, next one. Insanity. If you're not sure, without a shadow of doubt, you have to release the guy. Exactly. You cannot incarcerate somebody unless you know you've got the right person. We need to demonstrate to the world that we are going to hold somebody accountable for this. He'll do. We'll hold that person there accountable. He wasn't the one that did it. Doesn't matter. We need to hold somebody accountable, don't we? It'll be him. It wasn't him that did it. This is justice. That'll do. Keep the people convinced that it's working. Don't inform them of the failings of that. That's justice. That's justice. Eric wants to fight me. Okay, Eric wants to fight me. Eric doesn't like me because Eric likes Max Verstappen. Eric here, ER32K, would rather come here to undermine me, present me as being the psychopath, whatever it is that Eric wants to do. Suggests that this is a perfect example of mind conditioning. Absolutely right, Eric. This is a perfect example of mind conditioning. Who's the mind conditioner, Eric? Who has got the false beliefs, Eric? Who can see what's really going on, Eric? And who has been mind conditioned, Eric? But Eric comes to tell us that this is the perfect example of mind conditioning. A murder took place 38 years ago. And with the evidence gathering at that time, they just arrested and convicted someone who was at the wrong time and place. And with his confession was a slam dunk. Okay, so we could all be at the wrong time and wrong place. We can all be in an area whereby a murder was committed. We can all, a crime committed in a certain area. We can all be nearby. By utter coincidence, we also might attend a different location whereby another part of that crime was perpetrated. That can happen. We also might be part of something whereby, oh, you own a hammer. Yeah, you borrowed a hammer. Okay, that all adds into your guilt, doesn't it? Fucking hell. Okay, the confession part, like I've said many times in this video already, is something that at the time would have been deemed to be compelling. I acknowledge that. But that gets cast into doubt when the notion of police brutality becomes known as a thing, known as something that did take place. So that brings into doubt the notion of confessions. When other forms become possible to identify a situation, it's possible to identify using DNA testing whether this is right. This guy is saying he didn't do it and would like this test performed that would demonstrate whether it is. Okay, let's test it. And if it tests it and it's the same one, well, you've just wasted our time, mate. We've tested this. You're lying. You're presenting that you're innocent. It's cost us 200 quid to do that. So we're going to impose another sanction on you. Fine, that's fine. If somebody protests their innocence and that further way of determining whether they're guilty or innocent reveals them to be guilty, well, impose an additional consequence. Fine. But don't deny them of that test that would demonstrate it. You denied him of that test 16 years ago. You cost him 16 years of his life. You cost him 38 years in total. But 16 years of them were cost on his denial. Somebody making a decision to say, no, we're not even testing, mate. Fuck you. Let's have a look at the mind condition that I've been accused of here. But to say the system is corrupt, but for James to say the system is corrupt, I think, in the comment section, somebody thinks that Mr. Fraud is covering himself here when his own social court case, so-called court case against the corruption in F1 is rejected, and therefore the system is corrupt. Even his little boohoo errors, previous bullshit video is mind conditioning. All you fluffers, just feel sorry for him and believe he's a stand-up guy. Just wait and see. Thanks for that, Eric. Thanks for your valuable insight in the comment section. If I get accused of something and charged with something and are held accountable to my jury of peers, Eric doesn't like me, I'm guilty, according to Eric. Yeah, here's what it is. Why is that? Oh, because Eric likes Max Verstappen. Yeah, he doesn't like me, he likes Max. So everything I present is wrong and everything that he's heard already is right. Anyway. We'll have that cup of tea one day, Eric. Next one. I'm sorry, what? Sullivan admitted the killing to the police. Then he changed his mind. So again, this is the notion of that it's highly likely, it's possible that the confession was obtained through the use of police brutality. So this is a dynamic that we know is possible to have existed. So therefore, you cannot classify that as being safe evidence anymore. Okay, so if that is the only so-called safe evidence, the only thing you can hang a conviction on, well, you need to actually bring into question that conviction, and it all needs to be re-evaluated very quickly so that people aren't suffering further injustice, years of their lives lost, wrongfully incarcerated, wrongfully imprisoned for something that they may not be guilty of. And you've got to do that quickly because people are dying in prison. People have had their lives taken away from them and are dying in prison. They'll never receive any. Well, there is no justice. There's no way of compensating that man for 38 years of his life. No amount of money will do that. No amount of money will compensate him for 38 years of his life spent locked up wrongly. Nearly 40 years and they still cannot even ensure they had caught the correct suspect. still convinced he did the crime. So again, this is somebody with an opinion. Right? It seems to me from the way that this comment is written, and it could be the way that people articulate themselves and their use of the English language, I'm misinterpreting what they actually mean by this. So I'm not going to hang this person out to dry. It says nearly 40 years and they still cannot even ensure they caught the correct suspect. Okay, exactly. It would appear that they've got the wrong guy. It would appear that this lady's attacker and killer has never been brought to justice. They might have lived out the rest of their life. They might be dead now. They might have lived out the rest of their life in freedom. They might still be alive and be free. What's the chance now of ever discovering who that was? What is the chance now of revisiting that investigation and finding them? Fucking slim to none, I would suggest. I don't know how they conducted that investigation in the first place. I don't know whether there are other suspects that would have been at a pub that night and also been at the park at that time and also borrowed a fucking crowbar off their neighbour. Did they test their DNA sample? Did they test their semen? Who knows? Who knows if they ticked the right boxes? Fucking ridiculous, isn't it? But the bit in brackets here, if you mean that you are still convinced he did the crime, what convinces you of that? Just because he looks the sort? Come on, wake the fuck up. Why would you be convinced that he did it? What, because he confessed? Because he was a vulnerable person, perhaps? Living at a time where you're not aware of police brutality being a thing. You're scared. How many days have they held him? How long were they allowed to keep people in police custody for them? Until you confessed. Was he scared? Was he susceptible to collapsing and giving in to wrongfully confess for something? Or was he the type of person that would have the resolve to go, fuck you all, I'm never going to confess to something that I did not do? I don't know. But understand that it was a dynamic, right? 40 years, and it's simply not good enough. You're right, it simply isn't good enough. So again, look, I don't want to interpret your comment incorrectly, but just if that still convinced he did the crime is what your opinion is, check yourself. All right. Sullivan must have been around 30 because I was 22 in 87. Why discrepancies even in summary? Exactly. They say he's 68, right? They say he's been in prison for 38 years. So it's quite easy to say, well, he'd have been about 30 at the time that he was imprisoned in 1987. And the report starts off, Sullivan, aged in his early to mid-20s. Well, that's not 29 or 30, is it? And this is the media. How fucking hard is it? These are paid professionals to present what should be accurate information to people. You're on the BBC fucking news. You've got a duty to get shit right. Come on. Expect better of these people. Fucking, we're a society that accepts failure and not even mediocrity. Bullshit. Come on. That's the BBC. I noticed that too. I don't really want to go into the replies because some of the replies just descend into bullshit. But this is horrible for family. Rozzers used to do some medieval shit to get confessions back in the day. They couldn't imagine DNA or mobiles would be a thing of the future. You're naive to think that everyone in prison is guilty. And there you go. Now, let's not also jump to the conclusion that all police in the 80s are people who abuse their positions, who abuse their power, and were the sort of people to beat confessions out of people and treat people like shit. It was not everybody. But it did take place. Some did. And that is how some confessions were achieved. So, with that being a possibility, we need to review some cases now, don't we? Research common purpose. This secret society subverts judiciary. So this is maybe something I need to look into. Thank you for that comment. Thoughts. Thought it's though. Sorry, Denny. Denny makes some outstanding contributions. So if you are ever reviewing the comments, please have a look at what Denny presents, because I think we can all learn a lot from what Denny contributes on the Formula One aspect anyway, and you'll see here. Though this is off topic, I can draw conclusions in F1 to how this is conducted. When officials in positions of power engage in corruption, leading to wrongful convictions and the suffering of innocent individuals, they are acting in a manner that is contrary to divine commandments of justice and compassion. This can be seen as a form of antichrist behaviour, as it represents a perversion of the very systems and institutions that are meant to protect and serve the public. The question that should be asked is, how corrupt is Britain? Okay, and that's how to articulate this. I call them corrupt bastards and corrupt cunts, because I hope to kick people in the minds by articulating it that way. Many people will not accept that. They'll hate me for that. I'm the criminal for that. But many people won't be able to read Denny's words. They'll switch off by that. They're not interested in that. We need to find a way of getting people to see the situation for how it is. Okay? And it's going to need a combination of ways, because different people will have their minds opened in different ways. Major newspapers getting involved in phone tapping and payoffs to police officers. Falsification of police statements in high-profile cases. All of the largest British companies avoiding tax evasion using hidden offshore locations. Mis-selling as a means for personal protection insurance. Supermarkets selling horse meat as beef. Arms companies bribing foreign governments. Drug companies illegally paying other drug companies to keep accessible medicines off the market. Politicians being paid to ask questions and fixing expenses claims, etc., etc. Who's holding all of these people to account? Should we not have bodies that do that? Is it possible to identify the problem and come up with solutions and hold them to account and impose penalties, consequences? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Why is that not being done? Oh, yeah, it all costs money, doesn't it? Yeah, we're giving you that money to use it appropriately, to punish the perpetrators whose crimes are ultimately impacting us. They get to benefit from their criminality and crimes. We don't. We don't get a fucking £1 million to buy a £1 million house that they get for doing the wrong thing. Oh yeah, there's nothing we can do. We'll have a think. We'll have a think. The truth reveals that mutual dependence on government and business gives rise to systematic corruption, and the UK is systematically corrupt, including Formula One. A great day for Peter Sullivan, but many more are still kept silent. If you're black, you stay back. If you're brown, hang around. If you're white, you're all right. Justice for Hamilton, the truth shall set you free. Now, one of the things is, what many people don't realise, in my evaluation of it, my way of putting it to people is, many of us are black, even though we've got white skin. They treat many of us like we're second-class citizens, like we don't matter, like they can exploit us. They can do what they fucking want, get away with their crimes. The rules that apply to us don't apply to them. We don't fucking matter. Fuck you. They don't care. But what they do, they encourage us that are perceived by them to be like that, to rather than, and as a white person, I'm encouraged to believe that my problems, okay, for the challenges that face the people in society who don't fit a certain wealth fucking status, the challenges that exist in our lives where the services that we should be entitled to because we're paying for them don't do things, the opportunities that we're told we all have aren't really there. Oh, the reason for that is immigrants, is the people from other countries, the people of different religions, the people of different status to you. They're your problem. They're your problem. No, the problem is it's the corrupt system and those who are enabling that system. Because if the system was pure, then a lot of these problems wouldn't be a problem. Who's making the system the way it is? Who's keeping the system the way it is? Who is then enabled to accumulate huge sums of wealth to afford them a certain lifestyle? And who is kept in that position of being a fucking minion? And nothing in this world. Who's being exploited? Who's been taken advantage of? Who's being ultimately abused? So we're down to Kermit. Now, Kermit is a cunt, right? Kermit is a cunt of a being, okay? Presents himself as being a arbiter of a situation, okay? Somebody that seeks to critically assess the viewpoints of a given situation. Well, but what he does is unable to ever accept the validity of what's being presented, but always seeks to pick fault in everything. You go through every video, and every video Kermit has an issue with it. All right, and then he'll play both sides against the middle, and he'll present arguments on both sides, and it will miss the point of the truth. So let's look at what Kermit's got to say here. So the justice system is corrupt because a man who didn't commit a crime has been released. And this was found because of developments in technology that weren't around in the 1980s. That feels like justice to me. You see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? So this is why he's a cunt, okay? So he's saying, because my video is saying that this video, the original video that he's commenting to, is saying the justice system is broken, right? The justice system, the UK justice system is broken. The UK justice system is corrupt. And his response in the comment section is, so the justice system is corrupt because a man who didn't commit a crime has been released, and this was found because of developments in technology that weren't around in the 1980s. That feels like justice to me. So what, he's come here to my video to undermine me, hasn't he? That's what he always does. He's come here to present that, oh, once again, the guy making the content is wrong again. Yeah, I'm wrong again, aren't I, Kermit? I agree that it's not fit for purpose. Oh, he likes to play both sides. In fact, it's something that has been covered by the mainstream media multiple times. But there is no evidence of corruption again. Kermit, again, doesn't know what evidence is. Likes to tell everybody that the evidence doesn't exist, because Kermit claims he works in Formula One at the time of Abu Dhabi, and he claims that nothing constitutes evidence of it, right? Because that's what he keeps projecting. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's no... All right, Kermit, thank you for your valuable insight, right? It's been exposed multiple times by Mason. Has it? Has it ever been exposed like this, Kermit? You go and give me an example. Find me a link to mainstream media identifying the problems that demonstrate it being a corrupt system that benefits some and impacts others. That's a corrupt system that is not fit for its purpose. That purpose being justice. Changes can be made to that system that are easy to identify and easy to implement, and they're not being made. Why are they not being made? By refusing to make those changes demonstrates that those making those choices are making them for a particular motive. That motive, their remit is to ensure justice, and they're failing. Are we suggesting that that is just human incompetence? Is everybody just incompetent? They just all lack the ability. And it's only James here, fixed, Mr. Fraud, this guy who rants on the internet, this guy who has a psychological breakdown, this psychopath on the internet, yeah, this guy, yeah, me, yeah, only he thinks otherwise. But the mainstream media have exposed this multiple times. Show me the mainstream media, Kermit. But there's no evidence of corruption. Thank you, Kermit. This video will only get seen by maybe, because it's going to end up being 2 hours, but only get seen by a couple of hundred people probably. You'll watch it, Kermit. I know you are. You're a cunt, Kermit. There you are. You know what you are. Anyway, but James is an abuser. James is the abuser. All right, thanks for that. Everything is corrupted from the royal top to the gutter press. Yeah, it's true. Okay, the press doesn't report the truth. Sorry, I was trying to scroll down there and it got that wrong. Everything is corrupted from the royal top to the gutter press. People, again, we're all mind conditioned. Wave the flag for king and country. Yay for the, hooray for the king. And yeah. Again, you go back in history. What is monarchy? Is it people that have assumed the power, assumed the rule of a land through the use of brutality? I will kill the most amount of people to make the population submissive to me, make them scared of me. I will then impose law to make rules for a civilized society, to make it so that they're not allowed to uprise against me and take back any different power, so that nobody else can challenge my power and nobody else can take that power away from me through fighting me. Now, for everybody's protection, we have laws. I've given you law, I've given you freedom, everybody. Oh, hurrah for the king. Let's keep waving the fucking flags. There are people with a lot more knowledge of history than I have, but that hopefully just gives people a bit of a fucking mind jolt to think what's actually going on here. We do need to do a bit more research and a bit more consideration of what's really going on. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Well, you don't have to wait any longer. That's all I have to say about this. Thank you all for your time. If you found it useful, if you think it can be used to open the minds of other people, please share it. This probably won't be monetized. It's not for my benefit in terms of money, but what I hope it benefits is people's understanding of a situation, and I hope it can be used to firstly open people's minds, because firstly we need to open people's minds to be able to see the true dynamics of what's going on. In doing so, hopefully that will get them to either see it a certain way or enable them to present things in a way which helps everybody else see it in a certain way. This video on its own is not going to change the world. The way that you change the world is to get people to start realizing what's really going on. And the way you get to people to do that is there'll be something in their lives that makes them fucking see something a different way. Though that process of waking up, oh, somebody that's woke, look at them all woke and everything. No, it's called awoken, becoming woken up. Generally something has to happen in your life to make you go, what, and start checking shit. And that doesn't happen for a lot of people. And something has to trigger them in their mind to make them start seeing things a certain way. For some, it might be a video like this. For others, it might be something else. Some people you'll never convince. You'll always be a conspiracy theorist. Ooh, don't think about what this crazy guy on the internet's saying, right? For some people, that's what they'll always be. For some, it's going to take certain things to make them see things a certain way. And then maybe it's their responsibility to try and make others see things a certain way, using the things that they can use, that they can go, yeah, maybe if I use this example, this can help make people see things differently. Abu Dhabi 2021 was something I thought, that is something that I know the truth about, and I know how I can demonstrate that. And I believe I've demonstrated it in a way that you will never see. Well, not never see. I hope you do see it elsewhere, but you do not see or did not see elsewhere up until where you'd seen it on my channel. But I've taken you through track of view, explained that them commentators are lying about the rules of the sport before they're even broken, conditioning us to even expect it to take place. And I've demonstrated and told you the purpose of those rules and regulations and why you've got to release the lap cars and why it is you've got to afford them the time to catch the back and how that relates to the sport and fairness. And I've demonstrated to everybody that that's what happens every race and that's what's produced every race. And yet none of the media has ever exposed that. This channel might have been the first place you've ever heard that. And it all makes sense, doesn't it? If it makes sense, and it is underpinned by what's written down, you tell me where it's wrong. You go through every other explanation you've been given in every other form of media. Does it actually make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, why? And why does it still stand? If it's an injustice and injustices can be overturned, why is the injustice still allowed to stand? Anyway, thank you for your time. Please share it if you feel it can be of use to people. Thanks.